Hello friends, welcome back to Innovations in Marketing, and we are talking about innovations and value chains. I talked about Carvaan, Saregama Carvaan, and that is an interesting case. Then we talked about Airbnb, and that is also an interesting case, and we tried to analyze value chains, value networks, value webs, or value chains graduating into networks and then webs and so on. And we tried to build up a case around innovations and value chains. Now, I would be taking you towards a theoretical proposition which is very interesting and given by eminent authors through a very long standing research, 10 years of research, wherein they almost went for so many executives and talked to them throughout large parts of America and Europe. I think 30 companies, 130 executives, and probably 4,000 non-executives in 15 different companies. Sorry, and this research was a longitudinal kind of a research, wherein they collated so much of data and dwelled upon a very large understanding. It's a very interesting article and a very interesting research, and the reference is Hansen MT and Birkinshaw J 2007. The innovation value chain is the precise name of the article, and we are talking of innovations and value chains, and this was published in Harvard Business Review. So, a very interesting thing, you must read this, and this would give you a very important view about whatever we have been building in a very composite kind of a manner, and a systematic progression of the process which we have discussed up till now is being presented by authors in a different, in their own way, should I say. A very interesting thought, and they have precisely talked about pointing out or talked about that we should, or organizations should be thinking in terms of the weakest parts of as far as their value chain goes, in terms of implementation and execution of innovation, because they say that many a times we have lot many ideas, but we focus upon the strong points rather than weak points. Very interesting thought, and I will try to develop a systematic case around this also, and try to bring in some good examples for you. So, you see, the article says that the difficulties associated with generating innovative ideas and turning them into profitable ventures vary from one company to another. That is quite evident when we will look at different kinds of organizations, and I would go to the extent of talking about, for example, you look at two large banking organizations or two large insurance companies in the same industry, you would find huge variation in terms of innovative ideas and turning them into profitable ventures, although article talks about two different industries simultaneously. They talk about several examples, but these are two prominent examples which we have chosen out of that. Some companies may excel in generating innovative ideas, as they say, but struggle with the implementation process. So, generation of ideas is there. When we started talking about innovation, it became a buzzword in last 2 decades. Almost every organization is talking about innovation, and people have started talking about disruptive innovation or radical innovation, fundamental innovation, and so many terms they have got evolved out of this keyword innovation. But again, this article highlights that although it is all pervasive now, there are several innovative ideas, but then implementation process might be under question. And while some other organizations may have an effective system for funding and launching new products and services, but face a shortage of concepts to work on. So, large rich organizations who have lots of revenue flow, they have sort of an insulation which does not let them bring in fresh or new ideas. Where these innovative ideas come from? How do we convert these ideas into implementation throughout the value chain? That is precisely what we are going to see as far as this demonstration goes. So, Intuit, the company known for creating financial software programs like Quicken and QuickBooks, and these were very highly sold products, was once a company with lots of ideas, as the article says, most collected from outside the organization, but little discipline for bringing those ideas to market. This article importantly highlights that you can gain ideas from within, you can gain ideas from outside, and you can gain ideas from extremely outside as far as your whole value chain goes. So, that means this article wishes to say that internally you can be innovative by bringing in people from within the sector of marketing, or let us say product development sector, R&D, which most of the innovation literature focuses upon. But then this article talks about that these ideas can be roped in from the side of from other departments or functionalities as well. Even accounting and finance may tell you that this may be feasible if you do something of this sort, x plus y plus z, because that is somehow financially gainful, which you might not have in mind at the end of the day. For example, you are developing a product and you are looking into an innovative packaging to transfer that product somehow, and the financial management side highlights the cost perspective, which motivates you to think innovatively in terms of reconstituting or restructuring your packaging and packaging material. You bring in some innovation and designing organization to do that for you, and somehow the whole thing gets augmented. Sometimes your HR division also talks about, and I have been talking about concentric elements quite a bit now. So, you see, that is what this article talks about, and that is why this example is associated with poor idea diffusion, the Intuit example. The other example which article takes is Procter & Gamble, a company that had traditionally been good mainly at developing new products internally, and mark this word internally, and bringing them to market. But a persistent weakness was its insular culture. The company was poor at cultivating ideas from the outside, as the article says, not bringing many value chain partners on board. So, poor idea generation exercises, as the article classifies. I would refrain from using words like poor or not up to the mark. I would say somehow they were resistant. That is my submission as far as although it's author's view and I am presenting that in front of you. So, but my submission is in relation to resistance more or less, because somehow innovation is resisted to through some basic notions which we carry, and that we have talked about in several innovation based articles and courses and so on. Now, this is an important quote, or these are important lines when we talk about the subject which we are pursuing here. A company's capacity to innovate is only as good as the weakest link in its innovation value chain. And you see, as I said, people focus upon the strongest links, the strengths which we would be utilizing to pursue innovation, generate innovation, implement innovation. But we seldom focus upon weak links, weakest part of our organizational structure, product development process, value chains, value chain networks, and so on. And that is where the article comes in and says that we should be focusing upon this part more importantly as compared to other parts, because that is going to create a differentiation for us in comparison to our competitors or people who are within the same sphere and so on. So, I would come back to a demonstration later on, but let me slightly elaborate upon this, what this theoretical framework talks about. So, Hansen and Birkinshaw devised a framework to understanding the unique deficiencies in companies' innovation systems. Using this framework, managers get an end-to-end view of their innovation efforts. They can pinpoint their weakest links and tailor innovation best practices appropriately to strengthen those links. Appropriately, weakest links and strengthening the links. That is what we have to focus upon. Tailor innovation best practices appropriately means optimizing on all the accounts so that it becomes a reality. And I would be highlighting these points. The innovation value chain view presents innovation as a sequential three-phase process that involves idea generation, idea development and the diffusion of developed concepts, and that is how the sequence goes. And there is a whole lot of a matrix which has been presented in the article, and I would be deciphering that in front of you. But before that, let me focus upon these three elements of focusing upon weakest links, tailor innovation best practices and to strengthen those links. So, when we talk of weakest links, for example, you choose an element of your suppliers somehow. You are an agri based organization and farmers might be resistant to grow a specific crop which you would like to have as a raw material, and farmers are consistently supplying you with some raw material and you cannot develop new suppliers because you see agriculture we have limited space, limited supply line and so on, and often you cannot change the farming type or let us say product type and so on, and how to motivate them to shift their cultivation. That can be a weak link if we are talking about as far as this whole situation goes. And you see, involving farmers into this innovative process, appropriately augmenting this whole process and strengthening this process requires a lot of understanding and genuine participation of your buyers with the farmers, facilitating them with so much of raw material for growing or seeds for growing that cultivation, calculating and projecting definite benefits and gains and profits for them, huge market prospects for them, consistency for them, participating in all the processes they might have to go for actually change in cultivation. This might be one example. There can be other examples wherein you are introducing new products which might have a scant prospect of huge sales in the initial phase. How would you motivate your retail chain partners to actually participate in the process? I remember one of my friends, he was associated with one electronics company and that company was launching their products in a region quite some time back, almost 2 decades back. And my friend who was the regional head of that company was talking to retailers who were having huge sales and very prominent shop locations, and they were negotiating with with them for high margins which they could not afford at that time. So, my friend went to the retailers who were craving for multinational organizations to contact them because they were not having prominent shop locations. He went to a basement shop and tied up with that retailer for their products and pursued lot of meaningful communication in the surrounding areas, so much so that he motivated most of the customers to walk in there to that basement to purchase those products, and finally they grew and this retailer then became financially strong to buy further retail outlets at prominent locations, and that is how they went into a different kind of an innovation in marketing process and so on. So, here we are talking of as far as finding out the weakest part and innovate upon in terms of as far as addressing this weakness to convert it into strength. And this is how we have to focus upon. This weakness can be converted into strength through innovation in marketing, which can be supported by several value chain elements, starting from some from within the organization, from outside the organization and beyond the organization as well. Now, look at this interesting matrix. The authors have described it and it was reconstituted by us, reformed by us on the basis of the article itself and the figure given in the article. So, we tried to reconstruct this figure and redraw this figure here, and reference is given on the at the base of the slide. So, the portion of idea generation it has three parts: in-house creation within a unit, within marketing unit for example, the product development unit, R&D unit and so on. Then cross pollination, which they call, and they say that it is collaboration across units. These units can be functional units within that organization at that location, or several units around the geography as well. And then external collaboration, collaboration with the parties outside the firm. Those can be suppliers, those can be value chain partners or associates, those can be people associated through value networks or webs and so on. For example, hotel industry can guide airlines industry to bring in some augmentation in the marketing process, so that tourism can be enhanced and the hotel industry can also enhance their revenue and so on. So, that is collaboration with parties outside the firm. And then idea development comes in, which talks about selection and development, and while talking about selection it talks about screening and initial funding, and development it says movement from idea to first result. And then comes in diffusion, where it talks about spread, Airbnb, the spread, Carvaan, the spread, and so on, Crocs, the spread, dissemination across the organization. Now, while we are talking of idea generation and in-house, there are two aspects which have to be catered through and through. One is key questions, which we would be having, so this portion, and the second is key performance indicators, commonly and popularly known as KPIs. So, in-house, when we are focusing upon idea generation in-house, creation within a unit, so key questions are, do people in our unit create good ideas on their own? We have to identify and find out those kind of people. How to find out those people? We have to initiate discussion within the group and start focusing upon who is coming up with what and what kind of a intensity that idea may carry in terms of feasibility, because we have to go towards diffusion. Then the KPI in relation to this question is number of high quality ideas generated within a unit. How many ideas can we write or enumerate? Next stage of idea generation, cross pollination, the key question is, and cross pollination as you know is collaboration across units. The key questions are, or the key question is that, do we create good ideas by working across the company? Yes, we can. And KPI is number of high quality ideas generated from outside the firm, or within outside the unit, sorry. So, this can be read as unit. So, and then you see, as far as the external collaboration goes, the key question is, do we source enough good ideas from outside the firm? And key performance indicator is number of high quality ideas generated from outside the firm. There are many products or services wherein partners from outside the firm have motivated the company to innovate upon their performance. For example, many airports which are functioning commercially and they earn revenue through airlines traffic, they have many a times guided airlines to shorten their time of landing and takeoff. And I talked about Ryan Airways few sessions back. Ryan Airways is one of those airlines which actually reduced their landing and further takeoff time. That means lifting up offboarding the passengers and onboarding the newer passengers within a very short span of time, and they augmented the complete operation system on the basis of mutual discussions with the airports and themselves, so as to enhance the revenue of the airports in that small vicinity. If small airport is there, then several airlines have to land and time span has to be shorter. So, airport would earn further revenue by participation of larger number of airlines, and on the other side airlines would be benefited in terms of paying less cost to the airport as such. So, it is a mutually beneficial kind of a thing. So, they focused upon that. And then you see, when we go towards idea development, the key question at the stage of selection, screening and initial funding is, are we good at screening and funding new ideas? And the KPI is percentage of all ideas generated that end up being selected and funded. Development stage, The key question is, are we good at turning ideas into viable products, businesses and best practices? Finally, what are we coming out with? Maruti Suzuki Brezza. Yes, first indigenously designed vehicle, and it is gaining a huge market as far as the success story says. So, and there are several other such stories, basically there are several other efforts also and so on. And the KPI is, when we are talking of new viable products and business and best practices, the KPI is percentage of funded ideas that lead to revenues, number of months to first sale. Scorpio, Brezza, all these automotives, or any other example you may think of, any mobile phone for example, any apparel for example, any shoe for example and so on. And even a new type of a burger for example, aloo tikki, aloo tikki burger. This would have also gone through a similar kind of a story. And then when we are talking of diffusion and spread, the key question is, are we good at diffusing developed ideas across the company? And the KPI is percentage of penetration in desired markets, channels, customer groups, number of months to full diffusion and so on. How that idea would be adapted internally and externally as well. And I will slightly elaborate on these points with reference to the description given in the article itself. So, executives need to view the process of transforming ideas into commercial outputs as an integrated flow, rather as compared to, they have compared that thing with Michael Porter's value chain for transforming raw materials into finished goods. So, that value chain focuses upon how raw material traverses towards finished goods, and here they are talking about the process of transforming ideas into commercial outputs as an integrated flow. That is how they are focusing upon. So, this is looking at things from this side and that side of course. So, idea generation, as it elaborates, this can happen inside a unit, across units in company or outside the firm. Managers naturally look first inside their own functional groups or business units for creative sparks. That is a natural process. However, companies also need to assess whether they are sourcing enough good ideas from outside the company and even outside the industry as such, that is tapping into the insights and knowledge of customers, end users, competitors, universities, independent entrepreneurs, investors, inventors, scientists and suppliers. How Syntex water tanks would have come up with first plastic based water tanks? If you go into that story, although I do not promote plastic industry at all, I always say that plastic has created huge detrimental effect on our environment, but then Syntex became a huge success because probably people were waiting for such kind of a product to come. Idea conversion. This step is to convert ideas, or more specifically select ideas for funding and developing them into products or practices. Generating lots of good ideas is one thing. How you handle or mishandle, as the article says, it is very interesting, how you handle or mishandle them once you have them in another is another matter entirely. New concepts won't prosper without strong screening and funding mechanisms. Instead, they will just create bottlenecks and headaches across the organization. Sometimes when we are talking of such kind of things, similar kind of a demonstration has been given by holistic marketing concept of when Philip Kotler talks about that. It is also very interesting if you try to collate that thing with this thing. Idea diffusion. Concepts that have been sourced, vetted, funded and developed still need to receive buy-in, and not just from customers. Companies must get the relevant constituencies within the organization to support and spread the new products, businesses and practices across desirable geographic locations, channels and customer groups. Even if you are launching a very simple product like scissors, even if you are launching a very simple product like pen, a new sort of a pen, and if you are launching a complex product like a software wherein you can just use it and your usability gets reflected into how well it would perform. You do not know what kind of a coding and language would go into that. So, that is the complexity associated with that. Any sort of a product would go through this kind of a situation, but the importance of this kind of a theoretical framework is related to finding out the weak link. How to find out the weak link? The process is simple. Just draw a value network and then try and imagine the constraints of the parties associated in that value network. In case of Airbnb or Karma, we have seen how you can keep on developing value networks and value webs. And while finding out the individual constraints of the partners in the value network or value chain for simplicity, try and find out that why would that weakness get converted into a strength. Is it going to be because of the benefits you would propose, or is it going to be because of the lack of innovation at that end, or is it going to be because of the lack of because of the support of human resource which they might require, or is it because of the relationship which can be further developed with them. Microfinance industry, when it was growing, and I talked about this in my earlier session as well, would have focused on that knowingly or unknowingly, whichever way, and I presume knowingly. Definitely they have been intelligent people and they have been pursuing that. Professor Muhammad Yunus definitely would have focused on that. Several other industries which were getting developed all through would have focused upon actually focusing upon the constraints in terms of weak links and converting them into strengths on the basis of marketing process, HR process, financial support, investments, or any other thing, let us say supporting them through production and operations advancements in terms of technological advancements, bringing them upfront to the levels which you require as far as enhancing your professional operational efficiency goes, and so on. And that is how things would have to be addressed. Customers have to be motivated. Definitely, if somehow weak links are found towards the end of the communication with the customers, and we have talked about that in when we were discussing in innovations in marketing communication, integrated marketing communication. If somehow those are the weak links, then probably you have to work with your advertising company, the creative writers, the creative directors who would create those kind of storyboards and taglines for you, and then you may pursue that kind of an intense communication with your customer to convert that communication weak link into a strength basically. So, innovation in communication might come to your rescue. If it is all about service support, to be consistently innovative as far as in rest of the part goes, then probably you remember that advertisement, and I would have talked about that somehow, or if not in this course, I would have definitely talked about that in my integrated marketing communication course, which has been recorded and is flowing on NPTEL. That Maruti Suzuki advertisement, when someone is driving in hilly areas somewhere in Ladakh and they say that, do you have a restaurant here? No. Do you have a hotel here? No. Do you have a Maruti Suzuki service station here? Yes. Probably that would have augmented the complete value chain, and on that basis Maruti Suzuki is innovating upon several other processes, including introduction of new products. That is precisely the elements of innovation in value chain when we talk about. And you see, article also says, and I would also suggest that think innovation value chain, think innovation and value chains, think innovation for value chains, for value networks and for value webs. This course is all about to develop your thinking about you're developing your innovative thinking about value chains, value networks and value webs. I would be coming back to you with an interesting discussion on innovations and beyond businesses. I will be catching up back with you. Till then, goodbye.